All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into the pretty incredible world of forensic science. We're going to look at how experts answer what is maybe the most fundamental question of all when they're faced with the unknown. Who is this person? It's a huge challenge, mixing biology, anatomy, and some seriously meticulous detective work.
So, picture this. Human remains are found. There's no wallet, no phone, no ID, nothing. It is a complete and total mystery. So, where do you even begin to put a name to the nameless? That's the exact problem we're going to break down today.
And to make it a little more interesting, we're going to do it with a quiz. I'll throw out the questions, you can take a second to think about it, and then we will unpack the science behind the answers. So, you ready? Let's test that forensic IQ.
Okay, question number one. You've seen it in all the crime shows, you've read about it in the news, but which of these is actually the most scientifically reliable way to get a positive ID? Is it A, dental records, B, fingerprints, C, DNA analysis, or D, blood group? Go ahead and lock in your answer.
And if you said C, DNA analysis, you are absolutely right. Now, don't get me wrong, all of these methods have their place, but DNA is really the gold standard in modern forensics. Its precision is just unmatched.
So why is DNA the king? Well, this breakdown really shows you. Your genetic code is totally unique to you, unless you have an identical twin, of course. Dental records? They're fantastic, but they're completely useless if you don't have that person's records from before they died to compare them to. Same thing with fingerprints. They're unique, yeah, but they can be smudged or degraded. And blood type? Well, way too many people share the same one.
And that leads us perfectly into our next question. This really gets to the heart of why DNA is such a complete game changer in this field. What is its single biggest advantage over something like dental records or fingerprints? Think about that limitation we just talked about.
And here it is, this is the crucial difference. Unlike fingerprints or dental x-rays, you don't necessarily need a pre-existing record to make a match. A DNA profile can be checked against a criminal database, sure, but here's the really powerful part. It can also be compared against the DNA of family members, and that can lead investigators right to an identity even when no other records exist.
Excellent. So, we've established the power of DNA. But what happens when there's no soft tissue left? What if all you have is a skeleton? Well, believe it or not, the bones themselves tell a story. So let's move on and see what they can tell us.
Okay, the forensic anthropologists are on the scene. Their first big question is to determine the biological sex of the individual. So which part of the skeleton is going to give them the most reliable clue? Is it the size of the skull, the shape of the pelvis, or maybe the length of the thigh bone?
And the answer is B, the pelvis. Specifically, its shape, or what scientists call its morphology. While other bones might show some slight differences, the pelvis is by far the most distinct and reliable indicator.
And you can see exactly why right here. It really all just comes down to function. The female pelvis is broader. It's shaped differently for one very specific biological reason, childbirth. The male pelvis doesn't have that requirement, so it's narrower and more compact. This fundamental difference is a huge marker for investigators.
Okay, so we've got sex sorted. Now let's talk about age. This one gets a little trickier, especially with adults. Once a person stops growing, how can their bones still tell you how old they are? What feature gives the best estimate?
And the answer is actually really cool. It's the cranial sutures. You know those zigzaggy lines you see on a skull? Those aren't cracks. They're actually fibrous joints that separate the different bony plates of the skull.
So how does this work? Well, when you're young, those suture lines are wide open and really distinct. But as you age, they slowly start to fuse together, almost like they're zipping themselves shut. By looking at how much fusion has happened across the different sutures, a trained anthropologist can get a surprisingly accurate age range for an adult. It's like a clock written right into our bones.
Okay, so we have all these amazing individual tools, right? We have DNA, we can get sex from the pelvis, age from the skull, but how do they all fit together in a real large-scale situation, like a mass casualty event? It's not just about the science, it's about the process.
And that brings us to our final question, which is all about procedure. When a disaster happens and a DVI, or Disaster Victim Identification Team, is brought in, what is the absolute first thing they do? The answer might not be what you expect.
The correct answer is this. Before they even begin a detailed examination of the remains, the very first step is to gather information about the people who are missing. They do that by conducting what are called ante-mortem interviews with the families.
And this workflow shows you exactly why that's so critical. You see, you can't identify someone if you don't know who you're looking for. So step one is always collecting that before-death data. Things like dental records, a DNA sample from a toothbrush, physical descriptions. Only after that can you move on to collecting the post-mortem data from the victims and start the incredibly difficult process of matching the two. It all starts with the living.
Whew. All right. That was a lot of forensic science in a short amount of time. So after all that, what are the most important things to take away from this? Let's do a quick recap.
First off, DNA is king. It's our most powerful tool, mainly because it's unique, and you don't always need pre-existing records to get a match. Second, the skeleton is an incredible library of information, giving us vital clues about sex from the pelvis and age from the cranial sutures. And finally, remember that identification isn't some magic test. It's a systematic process that has to begin with gathering information about the missing.
Which brings us to one last thought. We've come so far from just basic visual ID to the incredible precision of modern genetics. So it really makes you wonder, with technology moving this fast, what kind of tools will forensic scientists have in, say, 50 years? What mysteries that seem impossible to solve today will be routine then? That's something to think about. Thanks for joining me.